All right, folks. I have a couple basic pieces of equipment set up here, and I'm going to try to steer you in the right direction when it comes to hooking a radio up to an amplifier. This is aimed at the newbies out there who don't have much experience. I see it over and over on the Facebook CB groups. These ham guys, I don't know why the ham guys really seem to be bad at this, and just some of the general radio guys too, or people that just don't know what they're talking about. The advice I often see is you can take any stock radio and just hook it up to an amplifier and talk and you'll be good. And that's not the truth. If you took a stock 4-watt radio and hooked it up, for example, to this amplifier, you'd instantly fry the amplifier up. So I'm going to show you the proper way to do it. I would always recommend starting off with the radio with adjustable RF power if you can. Like these Galaxies, the 949, 959, they all have adjustable RF power. Now I'm just showing this radio because it's a pretty basic radio. There's a lot of them out there. These can be big AM talkers. I think they're great radios. Sideband's another story on these. Sideband seems to drift quite a bit. But if you're an AM guy, this is a great radio. It's got a big meter. It's got all the controls and settings you need. And it's extremely easy to turn the modulation up and make this a big talker. You can do it all yourself, super easy. But for this video, we're just going to talk about how to set up a radio to an amplifier. Okay, these little 2-pill amps, these are low drive amplifiers. Even though this says HDV high drive, that means the top end, the swing. It doesn't mean your dead key. So what I'm basically trying to say is you cannot take a stock radio such as like a Cobra 25, Cobra 29, something like that, and run it into any old amp and talk. You'll burn the amplifier up. So I'm going to show you where I have the dead key on this radio set. That's the RF power. We're going to go over here to the meter. The meter's on the 5-watt scale. I'm going to key the radio up, and I want you to watch that 5-watt scale. That 0.5 is half a watt, the 1 is 1 watt. We are at a 3/4 of a watt dead key. So I have this radio set up right now with this. You can see the dial's way down there, 3/4 of a watt. You could probably run this all the way up to 5 watts if you want, but we're down at 3/4 of a watt. Now, all I'm going to do is I'm very simply just going to turn this amplifier on. We're going to come over here and we're going to put this to the 250 scale. And now this is the output of the amplifier, no modulation, just keying it up only. So watch that 250 scale. So I have this amplifier set up to do a 75-watt dead key. Now watch what happens when I modulate, when I talk in it. Hello, audio. Hello, audio. It buries at 250. Hello, audio. Hello, audio. Now, if you run an amplifier like this, the amplifier will last forever as long as your antenna and your coax is good. You'll never burn it up, and it'll sound loud and proud over the air. Now, you may be asking, well, what happens if I do put 4 watts in an amplifier? I'm going to show you. I now have this radio set up at a 4-watt dead key. Amplifier is off. Power meter's on the 5-watt scale. Watch the dead key from the radio. Almost a 4-watt dead key, just a tiny bit short. All we're going to do is come over here and we're going to turn this on. Now on. Now on the 250-watt scale. Now I want you to watch the dead key from the radio. No modulation, dead key only. Second scale down, 250-watt scale. It's dead keying 225 watts. I'm not going to do that for long. I don't want to burn my amplifier out. So now you can maybe see why you don't want a 4-watt dead key. You would burn this amp up in a second. The rule is the 1 to 4 rule. That's what they say. You want your amplifier to dead key at a quarter of the power as it does full output. So let's just say, for example, this did 200 watts. It does more. Let's just say it did 200 watts. You don't want this to dead key any more than 50 watts when you dead key. And then when you talk in the microphone, you modulate, it'll go all the way up to 200 watts. I usually run mine a little lower on bigger amps. Like let's say I had something that required, um, the 1 to 4 rule was a 200 watt dead key. Me personally, I'd probably lower it down to about 175. Makes it run cooler. Um, may give it a little more audio over the air. There's a lot of little tricks. But this is why you either need a radio with adjustable RF power, or if you do have something like a Cobra 29, you need someone to go in there and you need to have the dead key lowered down to match that 1 to 4 rule. But then you also need to put a swing kit in that Cobra so it'll still give it the full power on the top end. Because if you don't, it's just never going to sound good. Okay, now for an example, I have a different amplifier set up here. This is a 307 amps. This is a custom build here. This has 4 2879 transistors. This is a straight 4-pill, no driver section. The radio is now the driver. This one works a little differently. I'll show you how this works. I'll show you what now with this one, technically, they recommend 25 watts output drive per transistor. So that'd be 100 watts. So I'll show you where the dead key is. As you can see, I have it rolled up a little bit on the RF power there. We're on the 5-watt scale on the meter, and I'll show you what that translates to. We have about a 2¼ watt dead key now from the radio. So I now have the amplifier turned on, and I have this in the 1000-watt position. I don't have enough power supply to run this amplifier to its full potential here on the bench, but I want you to see the dead key, 1000-watt scale on the top. I'm going to dead key it. See that? We have a 100-watt dead key. So 2¼ watt dead key from the radio now gets this amplifier a 100-watt dead key, and then I'll modulate. Hello, audio, audio, hello, 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 audio, audio. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, just got down. Hello, hello, audio, audio. Like I say, I don't have enough power supply to run this to its full potential, but you can see how it's working. So I just wanted to kind of show this as opposed to the other one. This amplifier wants 2¼ I could probably go up to 2½ watt dead key. Whereas that Texas Star 350 only wanted 3/4 watt. That's why it's very important that you either have adjustable RF power on your radio, or you go in and you adjust your radio, or you make it so you can adjust it. Some radios you can go in and adjust them very easily. Other ones, like a Cobra 29, you have to have a mod it with a swing kit and stuff so you can get the dead key low enough. You can add variable power to something like a Cobra 29, or you can just go in and adjust it where it'll stay at 1 dead key. So if you're only going to run one particular amplifier, it's fine. But if you're going to want to experiment and run different amps, I would definitely recommend a radio with adjustable RF power. Guys, this is how you run your equipment. You keep it running cool and you don't burn stuff up. Same thing with this. If I went in here and ran this up at a 4 or 5 watt dead key, I'm going to end up hurting this amplifier eventually. It's going to have way too high of a dead key. Let's check it out and see what it does. So I now have the dead key rolled all the way up. Let's see what it does on the 5 watt scale. The radio only. almost 4.5 watts, a little shy. Amplifier on, same exact dead key. I got to change the scale real quick. I'm on the 250 watt scale now, second scale down. We'll see what the dead key is. It's a 200 watt dead key. That is twice the recommended dead key for this amplifier. Now this amplifier is a little more rugged than that Texas Star. Could you talk on it like this? You probably could for a little while, but it's not going to love you for it, and you'll eventually burn those transistors out. I hope this helps some guys. Basically, if you're starting off, guys, do me a favor. If you don't have a radio, don't go buy a stock Cobra 25, Cobra 29. Spend a little more extra money and get a radio that at least has adjustable RF power. That's what you want. And even then, it may not go down low enough from the factory. You may have to take the cover off and go in there and adjust it. Or if it's like a newer Striker or like a computer-driven radio, you'll have a menu you can go into and you can change it all right there. Spend a little more on your radio. That way you can run whatever amp you want safely. You know, if you do have an old Cobra 29 or equivalent, something like that, an old, Road King or, tons of radios out there that don't have adjustable RF power. Find somebody that can go in there and you want a swing kit. And I know these ham guys are going to talk crap about it, but I'm telling you, you need the swing kit. Because if you go on a Cobra 29 and you turn that dead key real low, let's say you get it down to 1.5 watts or something, a watt. When you talk, you might only get 5 or 6 watts out of it then. So you need to compensate for it. You need to go in there and you need to put that swing kit in there. So that way when you're down at 3/4 watt, 1 watt, 1.5 watts, whatever it may be, when you talk, you can still get that full 25, 30, 35 watts out of it. And then it'll drive this amplifier correctly, because otherwise you might only get 200 or 300 watts out of this. When in reality, if you drove this thing hard, you drove it right, you could get 800, 1,000 watts out of it, no trouble. So that's the big takeaway. Don't listen to these guys on these forums that tell you any stock radio, any Cobra 29, you just hook up to any old low drive amp and you're talking. It's bullshit. Don't do it. Okay, guys, so far we've seen the Texas Star 350, that wanted a 3/4 watt dead key. We saw the 307 amp. I believe that wanted, what was that? A 2.25 watt dead key, I believe. I may be mistaken. You guys watch the video, you'll know. Just for shits and giggles, we're going to hook up this little fat boy here. Now this one here, I'm going to show you this one. We're just going to leave it on high power so it does its full output. But first, I'm going to show you where I have the dead key set. We're on the 5 watt scale. That is exactly a 1 watt dead key. So now we're on the 250 watt scale. We're going to dead key it. Oh, actually, let me turn the amp on. So anyways, this is now a 1 watt dead key, and I do have the amplifier on, 250 scale. We're dead keying almost 50 watts. I can turn it up just a little bit. Stand by. Okay, here we go. 50 watt scale. 250 scale. It's dead keying 50 watts. That's where I personally would feel comfortable running this. No more than that. We're going to modulate. Hello, 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 hello. Audio, audio. Check, 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 check. Hello, audio, audio. 1, 2, 3. Just got down. Hello. So as you can see with the 50 watt dead key, it puts it all the way to 250. No trouble at all. Now this doesn't have the stock transistors in it. This has been repilled. This has some I believe they're Maycom transistors. They're pretty rare and hard to find. This was done several years ago when you could still get them. So this is doing some good output. Same rule applies though. You see a 1 watt dead key gets you 250 out. Now what happens if I turn the dead key up? We'll check it out. Dead key's turned up, you see it? 5-watt scale, 4-watt dead key, which will be absolutely disastrous to this. We can do it for a second to see what it does. 250-watt scale, I'm not going to modulate, I'm just going to dead key it for a second. 150-watt dead key, way too much. It would fry this box in a matter of like a minute or less. Absolutely just annihilate it. And as you can see, all these amps get driven all the way up to full power, or just about, and it's only limited by my power supply. That's because this radio has the modulation turned up and it's able to swing top end power. Even when the power is turned all the way down, it can still swing. Now let's take for existence my base station that I talk on. Now, I'm not going to show you this putting power out over the air, but you're going to have to trust me. There's the two radios I run, okay? That's my AM radio over there, the Connex. That's my Striker. That's my sideband radio. Okay? I got a power supply and a 2x8 staged amplifier down there. You're going to have to trust me. This radio right here, my AM, my big talking hell raising AM radio. 3/4 of a watt. That's all I put into that 2x8. That gives me full power output. I'm not going to tell you what it does because, you know, it's only running into a dummy load, because I would never modulate over an antenna with that because that would be illegal, right? It's running into a dummy load. But 3/4 of a watt gets full output on that amplifier. Now, if I run the Striker, I run this into the 8-pill section, not the 2x8, only the 8-pill section. So it's no longer a low drive, now it's a high drive. On sideband, well, on sideband, there is no dead key, you know, it's only modulation. But if I set this on AM on sideband, it'll be a 10-watt dead key. A 10-watt dead key gets me a 200-watt dead key out of the amplifier. And of course, when you modulate, it swings up from there. Everything runs nice and cool, and it lasts, and it runs for years this way. That's the proper way to set it up. So folks, please, 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 for the love of God, don't listen to these guys who tell you just take any stock radio, 4-watt radio, hook it up to whatever low drive amplifier you have and start talking. Either they have no idea what they're talking about, or they can't wait until you burn it up and let the magic smoke out. Just trust me. There's a reason it's done this way. You know, I've got more secrets and tips of how to get the absolute most, I should say, audio out of your setup too. It's real simple. You don't need any special tools. Well, you need a couple little simple things that most people would have, or they could go probably get at a Goodwill or order on eBay. Let's, you know, real simple stuff. If you want to see that video, let me know and I'll make that video in the future. But for right now, I hope this helps some of you guys. No more stock 4-watt radios into low drive amp, guys. This is how it has to be done. Spend a little more money on a good radio from the start. You know, these Galaxies are real great radios because they have RF power. You know, if you're not particularly big on sideband, just get one of these 949 or 959s. Like I say, they do drift on sideband a bit. It is what it is. Now, just to make things clear, you cannot use this radio, a Striker, something like this that puts out 70, 80, 100, 125 watts in any of those low drive amplifiers. You could run this into that 3074 pill. That would be fine. You just have to adjust the dead key appropriately because that's what that amp's made for. This would also be good to run into a straight 6. It would run forever. It wouldn't heat up. You see, I have it running into a straight 8. Never going to heat up. Going to run forever that way. A radio like this, an old realistic 40 channel, this is a no-go into a low drive amplifier. You'll burn it up. Cobra 29, a no-go in a low drive amplifier. You'll burn it up. Unless you have someone go in there and modify it for you. This Quad 5 right here, this is a no-go for a low drive amplifier. You can use this in a slightly higher drive amplifier, but not a low drive. It has just a little bit too much power for it. This little 980, as long as you go in there and adjust it appropriately, you can run this in a small low drive amplifier. That's fine. Just as an example, 959, great for it. This radio, not good for it unless it's modified. This radio, this unit in, has been modified to run with an amp, but a very specific amp that takes a 2.5 watt dead key, not for everything. This one here, this Cobra, does not come with variable power, but it has been modified, so it now has it, so I can run it with a low drive amp. Cobra 25 Classic, not for a low drive amplifier. In this case, this one has been modified, so I can run this with a low drive. Once again, the Striker, you need a high drive amp for this one here. Another example would be this General HP40W. It has, well, this one actually doesn't have adjustable RF power. It has a high and a low setting, and you can actually go on the radio and adjust it where you want it. This is like a 100 to 150 watt radio, depending on where you set it up. So if you wanted to run this into an external amplifier, you would definitely need a high drive amplifier to run this. You could run this into that 307 4-pill. You could run it into a 6-pill. Cannot run it into a little low drive though. All right, guys, I hope you learned something from this. This isn't bullshit. This will save you in the long run, guys. I hope you appreciate it. Take care. We'll catch you next time. 302 High Desert Radio, Northern Nevada. Click, click.